Lofi Poli Sci, Michael Pickering here, talking our famous question: what's going on in the world today? And some of that lo-fi local for you up top. Check out last week's blog post on lofipolisci.com for our post-Mardi Gras words. And also on lofipolisci.com, that just went up on Friday, is our Lo-Fi Global News article on wars today and today's wars, titled "Screaming from a Soapbox, and No One Cares." And stay tuned tomorrow for the second half of our list from Reporters Without Borders on media freedom. Last week we did the 10 freest countries. Tomorrow, the 10 least media-free countries in the world. And don't forget, last week's day 2 of the game went up. So get those answers in by this coming Wednesday, just a couple days, 10 p.m. for your chance to get all that Season 7 lo-fi loot. Now to the news, fresh off that press, what we got today. It's almost exactly a year since El Salvador enacted their nationwide state of emergency and started arresting people en masse for charges of gang affiliations. In the last year, more than 64,000 people have been arrested by the government and affiliations with gangs. Over 64,000. And just this past week, the government opened up its brand new, and I'm not making these words up, super max mega prison that will hold upwards of 40,000 people. And the first 2,000 people went in this week. Think about that. A prison that holds 40,000 people. Lo-Fi listeners, if you're thinking El Salvador is starting to sound like a police state, well, maybe we should start thinking about what a police state really means. We'll keep you updated because the 1-year mark is upon us. Let's see what this government's going to do next. Now let's head on over to Nigeria real quick to say that presidential election results are not in yet. Slow counting going on, postponements of some local elections for different reasons. We'll talk about why that is later. But it will be potentially middle of the week, end of the week, before we find out who wins and who's going to be the next president. But we will keep you updated for sure. But now let's move on to some other election news out in Sri Lanka, who last year we saw a mass People's Power protest that forced President Rajapaksa to go into self-imposed exile, flee the country, go to Singapore, resign from being president in Singapore, then go to Thailand, and supposedly, at the beginning of this year, he's returned to Sri Lanka. But I haven't heard anything about this lately, so hit us up, people, if you know what Rajapaksa's been up to, and if he really is in Sri Lanka. But anyway, elections are supposed to take place here in Sri Lanka coming up shortly. But the government says, sorry, no money to do them. Think about that. So economic instability leads to political instability and on. Yeah. We know. All this in Sri Lanka started last year because of the collapse of the economy. Got it. But now, things are so bad that the government can't even afford to run elections, to have elections. And people started protesting once they announced this. And the police started putting down those protests. Now, I'm curious. You can pay police to put down a protest, but not to run an election. I mean, you can't get some aid from the United Nations to help out? ? People, the situation in Sri Lanka is getting worse. It's not getting better. Eyes open on Sri Lanka. Now let's head on over to 2 other places at the same time that really are in just as much turmoil as anywhere else on the planet. The United Nations and the G20 summit. So last Friday, February 24th, made 1 year exactly that Russia invaded Ukraine. Do you remember where you were? I do. But last week, the United Nations General Assembly voted overwhelmingly, 141-7, with 32 abstentions and 13 countries not participating, to call Russia out and tell Russia to leave Ukraine immediately. 73% of the countries of the world straight told Russia, you're wrong, go home. And 1 year on, President Putin is still saying that Russia had no choice but to invade another country. And 73% of the world is still saying, bullshit. Now, on over to the G20 meeting, which for those of you who don't know what the G20 is, this is the group of 20, the 20 largest economies in the world that meet every year to plan how they're going to work the world economy, the direction it's going to go, and to try and help development. And in the past, at these meetings, at the end of these meetings, they make a unified statement, and they all sign the statement, and that's kind of the direction we go. But they couldn't agree on one. See, the Russia-Ukraine war, it dominated the discussion, and no agreement could be made for a closing statement. Now, that's not to say that there weren't some economic deals made. Of course there were. There were side deals, under-the-table deals, and we'll slowly hear more about those in the coming weeks. But this goes to show, along with what happened at the UN, that war, it's causing problems everywhere. War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. And a last piece of news to send you on your way for the day, and some not-so-heavy headlines. To China we go, where government law mandates at least 3 days paid leave for all newlywed couples. Which, I'd never heard of this before, but hey, pretty cool. You get married and you get 3 days paid leave. Paid leave. Sanctioned by the government. Sure, why not? But now, the national government of China has said provinces can extend this if they want. And some provinces have extended it to 30 days paid marriage leave. 30 days paid for getting married. Now, why would you want to do this in China? Question mark. A 5 count to see if you can guess. Birth rates. Paying people to go on honeymoons and make babies. We'll call this one the politics of procreation. Stay tuned to see what China will do next in their ongoing effort to increase their birth rates. And that's a brief snapshot of what's going on in the world today. Check out lofipolisci.com for the latest blogs and news articles, and connect to us on Instagram, YouTube, people, for all your local lo-fi updates. And always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be. Talk to you tomorrow, lo-fi listeners. Pickering, signing off.